everyone. It's 6 o'clock. Welcome to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting for June the 17th. My name is Brad Mitchell, and I'm the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee. I'll start the meeting by giving a brief overview of what the Planning Advisory Committee's mandate is, as well as a breakdown of how the meeting will progress. The Planning Advisory Committee consists of 9 citizens of St. John who have been appointed by the city's nominating committee. Our role is to provide advice to Common Council on applications to amend the municipal development plan, zoning bylaws, or Section 59 conditions, subdivision proposals, along with a number of other possible issues. Our views and opinions are independent. Tonight's meeting will progress as follows. Shortly, the committee will vote to adopt the agenda for this evening's meeting. Following the adoption of the agenda, we'll do a roll call for members of the committee. We'll then approve the minutes for 4 previous meetings, then declare any conflicts of interest for this evening's items. We will then go through this evening's applications and follow that agenda until it is complete. For each item, city staff will provide an overview presentation. Following this, the applicant will be asked to address the committee. Once the applicant has finished their presentation, the committee may ask follow-up questions. We will then open the public hearing, where any members of the public are welcome to address the committee. Each speaker has 10 minutes. We ask you to please avoid repetition of concerns or viewpoints. If you have a large group, we encourage the delegation of a single representative speaker. Once it's your turn to speak, you'll be called to the pedestal. The committee members may have questions for you following your address. Please note the committee has read any letters or comments submitted for this meeting. The committee may ask the applicant to return to respond to any comments that arise during the public hearing. After this, the public hearing section is closed. No further comments may be made by the public or the applicant. At this point, there may only be questions or clarification to city staff by the committee. Please remember that this is a safe space and that we ask for everyone to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. Should anyone interrupting the proceedings will receive one warning to refrain from disrupting the meeting. Should disruptions continue, they will be asked to leave the meeting. Members of the public are welcome to remain in the chambers to listen to the debate and decision of the committee. However, when your item is concluded, you may leave. Should you have any follow-up questions, please contact city staff. Now let's move to the meeting. So I'll start with the agenda. Do I get a motion? A seconder? Any question? All those in favor? Pass. Thank you. Roll call. First chair, Phil Como. Second chair, Ann McShane. Councillor Gary Sullivan. Peter Pappas. Terry Hutchinson. Josephine Chekwa. And I'm Brad Mitchell, the chair. We have a conflict of interest. Peter Pappas has declared a conflict on 5.2. Next are the approval of minutes, and I'll ask that we group the 4 minutes from May 21st, 2025, November 19th, 2024, August 18th, 2020, and July 16th, 2024. Do I have a motion? I have a motion. Do I have a seconder? All those in favor? All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 5.1, 224 Anthony's Cove Road. Applicant is Tricia and Jeff Perry, 224 Anthony's Cove Road, PID 00336339. It's rural residential. Its proposed zoning is rural general commercial. The Community Planning Act authorizes the Planning Advisory Committee to give its views to Common Council concerning proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw. Common Council will consider the committee's recommendation at a public hearing on Monday, July the 7th. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So the proposal is to rezone a site from rural residential to rural general commercial to allow for personal wellness business, and this would include on-site parking and a new spa area. The subject property is located on a 1-hectare lot in the far southeast area of St. John on Anthony's Cove Road, a kind of dead-end street off of Redhead. The immediate and broader residential neighborhood is of low-density zoning, which supports 1- and 2-unit homes surrounded by larger rural lots. And there's also industrial uses in the broader neighborhood. The site itself has a small residential building on it and a parking area. In the image above, you can see the access to the site from Anthony's Cove Road. The operations would largely not be visible from the public street. And the two smaller images just show Anthony's Cove looking south, where it ends less than a kilometer away, and then looking north, where it goes up to Redhead Road. The subject site is designated rural residential under the municipal plan, and this designation applies to lands that support low-density residential development located outside rural settlement areas and beyond the primary development area. They are generally unserviced, and the primary focus of policy within the rural residential designation is to limit the expansion of these areas, but using the CRG zone in it is appropriate. The most relevant policy in the municipal plan is LU 46, which directs that new development and significant redevelopment is permitted, but needs to be compatible with the existing character of the area and respect and enhance the natural environment. And the proposed use for the site for a personal wellness business does align with this policy, as it involves minimal changes to the property, and it's intended to preserve the natural environment and ensure compatibility. The zone is currently rural residential, which accommodates unserviced residential development in the form of 2-unit dwellings and 1-unit dwellings, and the zone also permits existing agricultural uses. The rural general commercial zone is intended to accommodate small to medium-sized commercial needs, serving the surrounding rural areas, and it's intended for lands outside the PDA and in areas designated rural settlement and rural residential in the municipal plan. So the proposed wellness business does conform to these policies and is an allowed use in this zone. Letters were mailed out to all property owners within 100 meters of the subject site on June 3rd. No letters have been received from the public as of this presentation. And the public notice was posted on the city's website June 13th, advertising for the public hearing date of July 7th. Staff are recommending rezoning from rural residential to rural general commercial to permit the personal wellness business. Thank you.
The committee have any questions at this time? This time I'll ask the applicant to come forward, and if you could state your name and whether you've read the staff recommendation and if you're in agreement with it.
Hi, thank you. Yes, my name is Jeff Perry, and I do agree with the recommendation.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, not if there's any questions. I really don't. That's plain and simple. That's really what it is. It's a quiet little wellness center. Just a hot tub, wood-fired fireplace, sauna, and a cold plunge. Yeah.
So I have a quick question. Who owns 232?
My wife and I.
Okay, so
That's our home.
The shared driveway is, that's your house, and so it's not an issue that it's a shared driveway?
The driveway is actually on our home PID. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else that have questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you.
That's great. Thanks.
At this time, if there's anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against this application? Second call, anybody that would like to speak for or against this application? Last and final call, anybody like to speak for or against this application? At this time, I guess I will close public hearing. Is there anything else? Do we have any questions for staff, or do I have a motion? Ann?
They all beat me to the punch. I think it's a great project. Yeah. Happy to make the motion, or whoever does, or second it.
I have a motion, I have a seconder. Any question? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Thank you, pass. Thank you. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, item 5.2. Applicant is Don Moore Surveys and Engineering. Landowner is Ethos Ridge Limited. Location is 500 Pelton Road, PID 55238471. Existing plan is major community facility. Proposed plan designation is stable residential. Existing zoning is major community faculty, and proposed zoning is low-rise residential. The application type is municipal plan amendment and rezoning. The Community Planning Act authorizes the Plan Advisory Committee to give its views to Common Council concerning proposed amendments to the municipal plan and zoning bylaw. Common Council will consider the committee's recommendation at a public hearing on July the 7th, 2025.
Thank you. Again, this application is seeking to rezone the subject property from major community facility to low-rise residential in order to develop 6 townhomes and 8 semi-detached dwelling units in a first phase development. This requires an amendment to the municipal plan, which would redesignate the subject property from major community facility to stable residential. An amendment of the existing Section 59 conditions and developers agreement are also required. Proposed development also requires a variance from the subdivision bylaw to allow for the creation of new lots abutting a private street that will have access off Sandy Point Road. Subject property is approximately 8.46 hectares of vacant land and woodlot located on Sandy Point Road in Milledgeville. Subject property site lies a transition area that separates unserviced rural residential areas to the north and serviced residential neighborhoods to the south. North of Westmount Drive, development consists of predominantly single-unit dwellings on larger lots along Pelton Road, Beach Road, and Sandy Point Road. And south of the intersection lies the serviced Kennecott-Casas Drive subdivision, developed in the 1980s, with sidewalks and access to the seasonal Somerville-Milledgeville ferry. Here's a picture of the site. Subject property was redesignated to major community facility in 2021 to facilitate the development of a seniors living complex. Major community facility designation is intended to accommodate a range of large-scale institutional uses such as high schools, universities, and major healthcare facilities, but not specifically residential. Subject property is adjacent to lands designated rural residential to the north and stable residential to the south, and is located within the primary development area. The area would be considered an area of the city where unserviced rural residential development abuts serviced residential neighborhoods, making it a transition area. Given its location within the PDA and its proximity to existing residential neighborhoods and the type of development being proposed, redesignating the property to stable residential can be viewed as the expansion of an existing residential development pattern. Stable residential designation is located in parts of the city which are generally built out and are not anticipated to receive major change over the planning period. These areas are within the PDA, generally on municipal services, and have potential to accommodate additional development at scale and density consistent with the surrounding context. Policy LU 86 recognizes that stable residential areas may include a variety of housing forms and densities. The appropriateness of new development is guided by its compatibility with the existing built form and its alignment with the overarching objectives of the municipal plan. While stable residential areas are not subject to specific density targets, the policy encourages flexible development that supports neighborhood continuity. Policy LU 87 supports the gradual evolution of stable residential areas in terms of land use and built form, provided that the new development reinforces the prevailing character and contributes positively to the community. The current proposal is consistent with this policy direction as it complements the existing mix of housing types and densities, which aligns with the built form found in the surrounding low-rise residential lands. Again, the subject property is currently zoned major community facility, which supports a range of large-scale community uses that typically provide services to the St. John region, such as hospitals, correctional facilities, major recreation facilities, and rehabilitation centers. This application is seeking to rezone the subject property from major community facility to low-rise residential. The RL zone is intended to accommodate a range of ground-oriented, low-density residential development and a variety of housing forms, including one-unit, semi-detached, duplexes, townhomes, and stacked townhouses, as well as small-scale apartments. This would align the development of townhomes and semi-detached dwellings along a private street. Letters are mailed out to property owners within 100 meters of the subject site on June 4th, 2025. While there were 7 letters of opposition received during the 30-day public presentation period and 3 inquiries about the proposed development, there are no letters received leading up to this PAC meeting. The letters received during the public presentation phase centered around the uncertainty of the development's location and access as it relates to the civic addressing of the subject property being 500 Pelton Road, although the development will be off of Sandy Point Road. The public notice for the public hearing was posted on the city's website on June 11th, and the public hearing itself will take place on July 7th. Staff are recommending that Common Council approve bylaw numbers CP 106-41 and CP 111-204, which would redesignate the subject property from major community facility to stable residential and rezone the subject property from major community facility to low-rise residential. Staff are recommending that Common Council rescind the existing Section 59 conditions imposed on April 6, 2021 in relation to a previous proposal and impose new conditions related to the extension of water and wastewater servicing for the proposed development. Staff are also recommending that the city, upon third reading, cancel and discharge the existing Section 59 and Section 131 conditions and enter into an agreement requiring the developer to upgrade the existing municipal infrastructure, restoring disturbed streets, and the installation of sprinkler systems. Thank you.
I'm going to have a question, Thomas, before you run off. Any committee members have questions? Can you clarify why we show 500 Pelton and not Sandy Point? Just clarification on that, please.
My understanding is when the bulb was created, the back half of Pelton Road, with the previous proposal of the seniors complex, it could have been for emergency services reasoning in terms of finding the correct location, but I can't give you 100% for sure why it was 500 Pelton Road and not a Sandy Point Road specific address.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, if ask the applicant to come forward and remind you that you have 10 minutes, and if you could state your name and whether you agree with staff recommendation.
Good evening. My name is Isaiah Reed with Dalmore Surveys and Engineers. I believe Thomas is going to get my presentation up here for. Thank you. Again, good evening. My name is Isaiah Reed. I'm with Dalmore Surveys and Engineering. And we have been recently assigned to this file to assist with the concept phase and designing of the new proposed project, Ethos Ridge. There's obviously a few things evident by the file and some of the letters that were received in the latter phases of this that I would like to personally address. And on behalf of myself and the developer going forward, I would like to address some of those neighborhood concerns this evening. And that begins with us doing a better job at engaging the community. So this evening, I'm hoping to alleviate some of those questions for sure. I'll dive into the common questions and concerns after, but for context, I'm going to run through the proposal of the development first and foremost. So again, Ethos Ridge, the site Ethos Ridge, the first proposal that came through here, the major community facility, was down on the lower portion closer to the water for this. This new proposal for the development is actually going to remain on the front side in the ridge, which is the wish of the developer. Some elevation drawings showing what we are proposing on the site. These are the townhouse units that will be at the top of the ridge, which I will show and point out again later on, but this is the aesthetic of it. Again, it's a concept rendering for context sake of right now. These are a rendering as well of the proposal for the semi-detached units that will be along the front side of Sandy Point Road. Like Thomas had pointed out, and thank you for your presentation and the staff's work thus far, the current zoning is CFM, and we are looking to rezone this to RL. What we are proposing this evening is six townhouses along the top of the ridge and 8 semi-detached dwellings that run up the hill of Sandy Point Road. This is showing our site. This is the concept phase, and for view sake, it's a little bit easier if we zoom in here. And again, I would like to clarify that the access is off Sandy Point Road, and we have no plans on exiting through the lower portion of the property. There was a few questions in some of the letters that I read that were regarding phasing and where we start, and part of that is with the agreement that the developers have and the previous landowner who sold the land to them, and they had an agreement between them, which I am just a consultant, but I have spoke to Scott about it, and he said that he is in talks with Daryl, who sold them the land, to come to their agreement and make sure they're actively working on what we will be actually putting on the hill. They have some concerns, and the developer is actively speaking with them and listening. So I believe that he should be able to echo those comments as well. But sorry, again, on the phasing, the phasing would begin at the top of the ridge, is where it would start, leaving as much of the exterior tree buffers as possible, but obviously wanting to have a view of the river. We've already touched on the zoning. This is more of a concept where you can see which units go where. So again, we have the semi-detached running up the hill, and it will be on a private street. And we have our townhouses at the top on the ridge. And servicing is another question. And at this point, I'd just get into some of the main concerns that I've had or witnessed through the letters. And again, hoping to address these going forward. Shall we proceed to council and work with the residents on these? But a few of the main concerns that came up over and over again was where was the proposed access? And thank you, council or committee, for asking that question as well. But it will be off Sandy Point Road. Another major concern from residents in the area is how will we service this? And so for sanitary, the proposed sanitary will be serviced by a gravity sanitary and fed through to the entrance to a private pump station at the entrance of the development, where we can see right there. And those flows will be lifted to the intersection at the Sandy Point Road and Kennebecasis Drive via a force main. Stormwater, a preliminary review of the stormwater has been done thus far. And again, we have a storm pond that will be there to catch the pond and take the post-development flows to a pre-development level, putting us at a net zero. And again, those will be directed out and eventually into the river. Water, we will be installing a new public water main extension down from the intersection of Sandy Point Road. And the services will be stubbed into the site with premises isolation for backflow prevention as well, is how we plan to service the site at this time. Another major question that deserves an answer as well for the residents is what's going to happen with the remainder of the property and the remnant of the property. At this time, absolutely no concepting has been done on it, nothing at all. That is not to say that they don't have a vision for something down there, but at this time, to the best of my knowledge, I'm the one who's been drafting these things, and there has been absolutely no concepting done for anything down there. But should the time come, I think that I've made it very evident to all people involved that we have to get the community engaged much better going forward. So there was some questions regarding whether or not we've consulted with emergency services as well. And we've been working with fire department to ensure safety measures will be taking place. And there was a few different things that we've come up with them thus far. One of those being that each unit will actually, and I want to specify that it's each unit will have sprinklers in them, just due to the elevation of the site for fire prevention measures. And that will be each unit, not each structure. I think that's an important note to take as well. And that's all I have for this current moment, and I will answer any questions that you guys have.
Any questions by the committee?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it looks good. I mean, I can't see how anybody would have an issue. It's exactly what the neighbors were asking for when the first development came, so.
Yes.
Here it is. Just out of curiosity, how many bedroom, are they like 2, 3-bedroom units, or are they like?
There'll be 3 bedrooms in the townhouses and just 2 bedrooms on the bottom as the proposal currently stands.
Awesome,
But
yeah.
there has been no floor plans done.
Okay,
at this
but roughly,
moment.
okay. Are there plans to develop the rest of the site?
Again, like I said, we haven't concepted any, but I would say that someday that they would like to do it.
Sure.
They have heard the residents though from the last time, and entering through Pelton isn't quite a viable option, so we've began to look where you can see the T intersection. We've began to look right here on the site plan, how we could cut down through the back of the hill to come this way. We're doing some elevations and grading to see what that would consist of at the current moment, but again, we haven't made it any further than what is being presented here this evening.
Okay, and then my last question is just about, is this a private road? that
Private road,
serves it?
yes, yeah.
So in the past, the cities had a thing where they're like, we don't want private roads, because then what happens, they get turned over to the city, and then they're not up to standard, and then nobody knows how to service them, there's a big fight. So tell me why that won't happen here.
The developers plan on holding this property and not selling this property for a long time. This is a property that they are personally invested in and hope to have family members here as well. That's, to the best of my knowledge, a pretty good reason to maintain and upkeep the road that they plan to
And all the
inhabit.
servicing you guys would handle all the servicing, because
Yes, there would be a lift station at the bottom that would be pumping up, and again, all at the developer's expense.
Okay, thank you, it looks good, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. My question was sort of the same as Ann's here about future plans, and this is, I guess, maybe for city staff. If future plans happen and they want to expand, do they have to come back to PAC?
Yeah, so future road networks would have to go through our standard process. So right now, if it's a private road, PEC would have to give a variance to allow the creation of lots off of a private road. So it would be something that would come through a subsequent process.
Any other committee members have questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open the meeting to the public. If anybody would like to speak for or against this application, please come forward and state your name.
Mr. Chairman, Jody Clifford with Vision St. John. Just a quick, support for this project. Seems like a great infill project, gentle density in the serviced area of the city, great design. And also the product type, there's a lack in the market of townhouses and semis, so we think it's a good product to put on the market right now, and we're in support of it. I just want, and great report by staff. I just wanted to clarify some of the comments as I was talking to Mr. Walton earlier today, and just was asking him about the sprinkler situation, and that's great. I think it's a great compromise between what Fire was saying, what his development needs. I just wasn't sure in the wording of that Section 59 condition. That's why I brought it forward to Mr. Walton. Like, are you sure every structure should have sprinklers? Because that would require a shed, a garage, theoretically a doghouse. So I wasn't part of the conversations with Fire. I just flagged it for him. So I think that's why the consultant brought up right now. And I just want to punt that to staff just to get some feedback on that wording if it's appropriate. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public that would like to speak for or against this application? Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak for or against this application? Third and final time, anybody from the public that would like to speak on this application? This time we'll close the public portion. I'll ask if committee members have questions for clarification or would like to make a motion.
I'll move staff recommendation on this.
I have a mover and I have a second. Terry, any question? All those in favor?
I have a question.
Opposed? You have questions? Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just regarding the question about the sprinklers, is that something that staff can handle without us, it fetching up us approving this application?
Yeah, the intention with the condition was just that with the building permits, that a sprinkler system be identified as part of it. The technical method for which the sprinkler systems are designed and implemented would be up to a discussion with.
Okay,
building
perfect. That's why I just want to make sure we weren't hand tying anybody. Awesome, thanks.
And
Second.
Jeremy maybe has a.
Jeremy?
Yeah, we may contemplate just to clarify the language around the Section 59 condition so that it applies to inhabited areas of the dwelling as opposed to all structures, but whatever would be necessary to be in accordance with the National Building Code.
Okay, that's a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Move on to 5.3.
With 5.3, we may have, we do have representatives for it on Teams.
They may what?
Representatives for the application are on.
Okay. So item 5.3, welcome back, Peter. This is applicant is Tom Cole. The landowner is Jarrett Michael Earl. Location 1384 Latimer Lake Road, PID 55203095. The existing plan designation is park and natural area, rural residential, and rural resource. Proposed plan designation, park and natural area, rural residential. Existing zoning is rural. Proposed zoning, mini home park residential. Application type, municipal plan amendment and rezoning. Community Planning Act authorizes the Planning Advisory Committee to give its views to Common Council concerning proposed amendments to the municipal plan and zoning bylaws. Common Council will consider the committee's recommendation at a public hearing on July 7th, 2025. Thomas.
Thank you. Again, this application is seeking to amend the zoning bylaw to rezone a portion of the subject property from rural to mini home park residential in order to develop a 17-unit mini home park. This requires an amendment to the municipal plan, which would redesignate a portion of the subject property from rural resource to rural residential. Subject property is located outside of the primary development area on the east side of the city, near the intersection of Lattimore Lake Road and Eldersley Avenue. Subject property is a vacant flag lot and lies at the eastern edge of the predominantly rural neighborhood that extends to the north and west of the property. Here's a photo of what would be the access to the site. Subject property is currently designated rural resource, park and natural area, and rural residential. The front portion of the subject property is designated park and natural area due to it being within a drinking water reservoir buffer area and will remain park and natural areas. Given the presence of a watershed buffer on the subject property, the proposed development raises further concerns regarding its potential impact on water quality and ecosystem integrity, and contrary to the intent of the municipal plan's environmental protection objectives. Approximately 1,500 square feet of the subject property is currently designated rural residential. This pattern suggests that, majority of the subject property and the portion that is proposed to be redesignated is currently designated rural resource. These lands are intended to facilitate resource-related activities where appropriate, such as forestry operations, wind and solar energy development, agriculture, fisheries, and extraction activities. Limited residential and other land uses may be contemplated. Given its location outside of the PDA, excuse me. Given its location outside of the PDA, the closest residential designation would be the rural residential designation. The front half of the subject property, about 1,500 square meters, is rural residential, consistent with the other residential dwelling units on the street. It does not extend to the back half of the property, as there's been a consistent 130 to 200 meters from the street to the back, regardless of the property's depth. This was a clear intention of the municipal plan to limit the rural residential from a sprawling attitude and keeping it closer to the street itself. Policy LU 104 states that the rural residential area designation is intended to support existing rural residential uses, with new lot creation generally discouraged unless previously approved by council. While development on existing lots designated rural residential is permitted, the focus remains on preserving the rural character and avoiding further expansion. Policy LU 105 indicates that redesignation of lands of the rural residential designation shall only be considered in areas where existing rural residential development is located and was unintentionally omitted or to approve illegal land use. Again, while approximately 1,500 square meters of the subject property is designated rural residential, the development pattern along Lattimore Lake Road reveals that the rural residential designation, again, only exceeds 130 to 200 meters off the road, regardless of overall lot depth. Subject property is currently zoned rural, which supports resource-based activities like agriculture, forestry, and fisheries, and limited residential. The proposed development requires a rezoning from rural to mini-home park residential in order to develop a 17-unit mini-home park. As a requirement of the RP zone, communal well and septic are also being proposed to service the proposed development, given its location outside of the PDA and the lack of municipal servicing. Letters were mailed out to property owners within 100 meters of the subject site on June 4th, 2025. No letters were received of this presentation. Public notice for the public hearing was posted on the city's website on June 11th, 2025, and the public hearing for this application will be on July 7th. Staff are recommending that Common Council deny the redesignation of Schedule A of the Municipal Development Plan from Rural Resource Area to Stable Residential or Stable Area, and deny the redesignation of Schedule B of the Municipal Development Plan from Rural Resource to Rural Residential. Staff are also recommending that Common Council deny the rezoning of the subject property from rural to mini-home park residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members have questions for staff? Ann, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just have one question. Do you have a map where the PDA is? Like, how far outside the PDA is that?
If you give me 10 seconds.
I know, just curious. It's not a bump out or it's not a, yeah.
Let's see if I can access this. Actually, do you mind if I grab my own computer really quickly?
What's that?
Do you mind if I grab my own computer really quickly?
I don't mind anything in life. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, significant. No bump outs. Thank you.
Sorry,
Hello.
what's the answer? From downtown?
From
Okay. So does that answer your question? Yeah? Any other questions to staff at this time? All right, at this time, I'll ask for the applicant to come forward. And if they would like to state your name and if you've read staff recommendation.
My name's Thomas Cole. So a little bit about me. I moved here from Ontario in 2020 for a real estate business. The housing issues in Ontario obviously pushed the prices to a crazy number where it didn't really make sense to keep working there. But where we got the vision for this park is that my grandparents and my parents were both, well, my grandparents were snowbirds down in Florida, and they did over 55 years of age community, which was really good. And my parents now spend their winters there as well. And we figured there's nothing really here sort of like that. So we thought that it would be a good idea to have a mobile home community, but not quite mobile homes. It'd be sort of mini homes, so like a modernized feel. But not like a mini home park where your property is just neighbor, neighbor, neighbor. We thought it'd be nice to have something that would give you like the affordability of an apartment and maintenance levels of an apartment, but with the feel of a home. So you have privacy around your house, you have a backyard, you have a garden, a driveway, but then you'd have lot fees like a mini home park that would cover your maintenance. So somebody would come do your lawn maintenance, your lawn care, your road plowing. So basically people looking to downsize into a community that sort of gives them that apartment living with the feel of still having a home and not having to move into an apartment. The other thing too is we're not really asking the city to make any investment into existing infrastructure because we don't need to build a road, or the city doesn't need to build the roads. You don't need to extend water servicing or sewers because we're going to be all operating on one well system and one septic system. And it's also a good tax density for the use of undeveloped land for the city. And
yeah, so sort of done a prototype inside the city limits already off of Hillcrest Road. 136, I did a tiny home development, just a single unit. And I use it as a Airbnb currently, and everybody that stays there asks me for a drawing for it and asks who built it because they love the idea. It's small scale living, but you have privacy. Each lot in this drawing, I don't know how to get that back up, but each lot in the drawing is 0.33 of an acre. So each property would have they'd have their own yard space. People aren't living on top of each other. Sort of more like geared towards. Yeah. So here's the drawing here. Each lot would be 0.33 of an acre.
How do we get that up on? There we go.
Yeah, so each lot's 0.33 of an acre. There's 17 total. The first portion of the property was sort of the problem with the zoning. I think the second half, the engineer, Dan, I think he should be on our call, but basically it doesn't interfere with the watershed whatsoever. There's no issues there. And as far as like storm runoff or anything like that, there's no issues as the property's all sloped towards the back half of the property, which doesn't interfere with the watershed. But I do have some drawings of a prototype, the one that's already finished, if you guys want to see that. Just have to... If there's any questions in the meantime too, while I'm pulling this up, open questions or concerns.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I always have a question. Yeah, anyway, I get the idea of what you're doing. So you would think of them as like running them like your current Airbnbs that you have?
Well, we want to do these like long term. So sort of the idea of like a instead of moving into a retirement home, you could have your own space that like your yard, plowing, lawn mowing, maintenance is all taken care of.
None of
Like-
these are short term. Right?
Okay, that's what I was
these-
curious, because you just mentioned about the snowbird thing too, and then you had mentioned about the Airbnb, so I was curious
Yeah,
if they're.
no, I just meant like you don't see it in New Brunswick at all, where there's like over 55 age communities.
Yeah, no, I like what you're doing with that part piece of it, but
And
yeah.
I see them in the States, and I think they're awesome there because you get sort of that community feel.
Mm.
Everybody's out in their golf carts going to neighbor, and it's more of a community feel than just you don't really talk to your neighbor type of thing. But you don't see them here at all, and I think it would be a good addition as the baby boomer demographics now sort of that largest
Did you look at any other land that might have been in more of a serviced area for this type
We
of
looked
a?
at a few different spots, but this sort of was a good size for us to see if this model sort of works. And if it does, we'd like to try to do it on a bigger scale. And this was sort of one that just fit the criteria. The location's good because that sort of east end of St. John is a good demographic. It's a good area for it. And it's not too far from some of the other projects we've done as well. And I do apartment rentals and stuff and I'm building in Dieppe right now. But we do apartments and we have some in St. John as well that we've done. Like we did the Ritchie building, which is where O'Leary's pub is. And that was like a big revitalization project where it was just unused space for the top 2 floors for the last 100 years, maybe. I'm not too sure how long. And that turned out really good. And
I'll just say, like, I'm just going to say this up front, but I love the idea of everything about this. I will have an issue with where it is. It's too far outside the PDA for adding a cluster. And then what I'm worried about is precedent. And it sounds like even how you pitch that, like you're actually looking for it to set precedent for more of these and as an expansion. And so it's not going to be my jam, but I say that freely so far because I really hope you put it somewhere else because I like what you're doing and the idea of it. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, so this is basically the idea. This is like finished. It's not just a drawing, it's the actual product that we did. So basically, this one's 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. It's on an 18-acre piece of land, but basically somewhat of the same design, just a little bit bigger, like 2 bedroom, less than 1,000 square feet, based on just the demand, I guess, of.
is the PAD, is that like the intensification zone? Is that what that means?
It's the serviced area where there's like water and sewer, and so typically we would discourage, especially significant developments or like, you know, like a chunk new neighborhoods moving into these unserviced areas, because it's not even just like the fact that you can provide your own water. You're like, hey, we can do our own water. It just sets up critical masses of people outside where you want to be doing servicing, so it's sprawl, is what it is. But I love these. Please put them.
So I think sort of the reasoning, like for that location, was we sort of saw it as people when they're downsizing or maybe retiring, they sort of move outwards of the city in that sense. And we thought that was sort of close enough to still feel like you're in the city, but having the privacy and trees around your lot give you the feel of sort of being outside of it as well.
Yeah, you had mentioned seniors. Is this just for seniors?
Not just for seniors. Well, we're not like 100% set on that, but I think that's a good demographic. And if it did go, we would go completely that way, which I think that's the best way to do it personally.
I make sure I understand this correctly. So basically, you're going to take this piece of property, you're going to build your own road, your own water, your own sewage, and then you're going to have these homes. You're going to sell them? Like people are buying those?
So ideally, we would like to rent them and hold on to them, but there'll be an option to buy them as well.
And then you'll maintain the lawn,
So
snow
when we're dealing
removal?
with the city, it had to, for that zoning or for that location, it has to operate as a mini home park. We have to charge lot fees, and then we're responsible for maintaining the road, lawn maintenance, garbage removal.
Okay.
As
Thank
well
you.
as, like, there wouldn't be more like trailers that you're just parking on a lot. They'd be all on their individual foundations and they're fixed dwellings. So it's more of a, you know, once everything grows back up, it'd be sort of almost like a private community.
Their home's just a smaller scale, and like another reason that we saw that too is like the way the market is right now. You get a house that's listed for $199, it sells for $350, $360. So stuff's going way over asking for what it is, and what you're getting is usually an older home that needs renovations and work on top of that. So if we can build these for a good cost and have a good either rentable option or have a rent to own option where a tenant can move in, decide they like the park and pay toward the down payment and basically make that their home, they'll be basically brand new houses that you can fit in that $200,000 to $400,000 range.
All right, thank you. Any other committee members have questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Sign out of here.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against this proposal? Second.
Good, online there is, yep.
Oh, Where is this going? Help me out. Whoa. Is this, can you speak who this is? Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Daniel Houghton from Engineering by Houghton, and I'm just here in favor of the development on behalf of the proponent. And if there's any questions from an engineering perspective that I can answer, lay them on me.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have questions for the engineer at this time? No. Thank you very much for phoning in on this. Appreciate that. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak on this application? Third and final time. Is there anybody that would like to speak on this application? All right. At this point, I will close the public hearing, and I will ask if there's any comments or Gary or
I'm
Ann?
prepared to make a motion, but I didn't, if someone has a comment, go ahead.
Yeah, I was prepared to make a motion and make a comment. So I'd move staff's recommendation. But I'd also suggest to the gentleman, they talk to that guy. Because I agree with Ms. McShane 100%. I would love to see this project, but not where it is. I think you've hit all the marks on what I would love to see in the city, on affordability, on the ability to own something that's new and affordable and more environmentally friendly and more neighborhood oriented, except we tried to stop building neighborhoods outside the PDA a few years ago just because of the sprawl.
Thank you. I have a motion and a seconder. I'll just comment because I will be voting against this motion. I think that not everybody wants to live downtown or close to town, and some people like to live in a more rural setting. So I support this proposal. So just so you know that I will be voting against the motion on this particular one. So at this point, I will ask for a show of hands. Yeah, we're still on the question. Yeah.
I'd like to ask staff a question of the engineers, if I may.
Yeah.
Stop touching the button.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Who was on this one? Jeremy?
Yeah.
Is there any risk of contamination from runoff from this proposed development into the waste or to our watershed?
No, not any greater than any other on-site sewage disposal system. The site was proposed to be serviced by a non-conventional system, which provides treatment for all of the residences, as opposed to individual septic systems. That being said, they're subject to the same requirements as any other development. So, no, I would not expect there to be any appreciable risk to the watershed.
Good, thank you.
The other question at this time? I'll ask for, we have a motion to accept staff recommendation. I have a motion or a second. All those in favor, please show your hands because we'll get to a count on this. We have 2. Those opposed? So we have, you got all that, Colleen? All right. So that means that we are approving this? Is that the way I would understand that?
So you have defeated the motion to approve staff recommendation. So that would mean that you are sending it to council with PAC support and staff opposition.
Okay, thank you. I think that's happened a few times recently. All right, thank you very much. I wish you good luck. All right, next. I've lost this. How do we get here? All right. So, item 5.4. Applicant Rick Turner, landowner 70498. I gotta make this bigger. I was at the eyeglass person today. 704-987 NB Limited. Location 859 Sand Cove Road, PID 00394809. The plan designation is a stable residential. Application type is rezoning. The Community Planning Act authorizes the Planning Advisory Committee to give its views to Common Council concerning proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw. Common Council will consider the committee's recommendation at a public hearing on Monday, July 7th, 2025. At this time, I'll ask staff presentation, please.
Thank you. So the proposal is to rezone this site from neighborhood community facility to mid-rise residential for the development of 3 multi-unit apartments that have approximately 120 units between them. This would include all required parking, landscaping, and amenity space on site and would keep the existing daycare. The subject property is located near the Duck Cove neighborhood in the intersection of Seawood Lane, Sand Cove Road, and Blurry Street. And it was the former school site before it was decommissioned in 2017. This area is characterized by a mix of housing typologies from low-rise single-family to mid-rise apartments. The property itself has an area of approximately 1.9 hectares and would be accessed off of Sand Cove Road for the daycare and then off of Seawood Lane for the remaining of the apartments. It currently only contains the old school building, which has been repurposed into a daycare, and that would remain as part of the development. In the images of the site, the first one is looking at the existing daycare and site from the intersection. As said, this would be retained and the current access and parking for it would be upgraded. The smaller top image shows the site from the very rear. One building would sit kind of beside the daycare near that intersection. A second building would sit back near the baseball diamond, and then a third building would sit in the southeast corner of the site. And the very rear of the site would see a stormwater management pond, trails, and some of that amenity space. And then here's another just image looking down Seawood Lane. This is the existing access for the site, and it would be the newer access for the apartment buildings. There would also be a sidewalk constructed along here to connect to that intersection and the wider pedestrian network. The smaller images just again show Seawood Lane and then some of the existing access for the daycare. The site is designated as stable residential in the municipal plan, which does support this proposal. The most relevant policy for this proposal is LU 86, which outlines that housing of almost every form and density can be found, and that existing neighborhood context and compatibility with the municipal plan will determine the suitability of new proposals. So the proposed apartment buildings do meet this intent by respecting the surrounding variety of density, and it demonstrates consistency with the municipal plan's wider goals of more housing choice, better urban form, and community livability. LU 87 is also a relevant policy, and it intends that areas designated stable residential will evolve over time from a land use and built form perspective, and that again, new and redeveloped land uses are to reinforce the community character. The design and scale of the apartment buildings does complement some of the scale and density of the surrounding neighborhood and would make a positive contribution to the neighborhood by providing another typology of housing and more housing choice. So the site is currently zoned neighborhood community facility, which is a regular zoning for school sites, daycares, community-oriented facilities, arenas, etc. And then the proposal is to rezone to mid-rise residential, which is intended to accommodate a range of medium-density residential developments, but it can also include single-family, townhouses, apartments, condominiums, etc. And this zone does also allow for some complementary non-residential uses, such as that daycare center. There are also requirements when rezoning to RM that would require more landscaping, buffers between parking and residential, buffers between lower-rise residential and mid-rise residential, and that there would need to be amenity space and parking requirements as well. Letters were mailed out to the property owners within 100 meters of the subject site on June 3rd. Public notice was posted on June 13th. The applicant did do their own engagement. They did door-to-door engagement to a majority of the surrounding neighbors within about 150 to 300 meter range, and they did advertise an open house for May 31st. 4 letters have been received of this presentation, 2 in favor, 1 in opposition, and 1 neutral, with some suggestions for mitigating impacts. The public hearing date is scheduled for July 7th. As this proposal does align with relevant policy, staff do recommend that Common Council rezone the property from CFN to RM to allow for the proposed development. Thank you.
Committee members have any questions for staff? I do. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So I think it's a good thing. My question is just, in your proposal analysis, it was a bit silent about traffic flow studies. I just want to know, with this development of 120 units, I see that the applicant proposed to construct sidewalk, but apart from sidewalk, is there likely to be an impact to traffic flow? And if yes, what has been put in place to check me this? And if no, then no is no.
Through the chair to the committee member, I can also turn it over to our infrastructure team as well, but for projects of this scale, we do usually request a traffic impact statement or a study, which was submitted as part of this application. And the applicant's engineer did indicate that traffic was to be funneled onto Seawood and then up to that intersection instead of coming off at Sand Cove. The developer just proposed sidewalks himself, so that's just a bonus for the area to help connect that walkability. Yeah, maybe I can turn it over to my colleagues if there's any further comments on infrastructure.
So I would just add, as Eva had mentioned, that the traffic impact statement did indicate that there would be no detrimental impact to the flow based on this development. They also indicated, and our traffic engineer agreed, that it may be detrimental to have extra flow come out Sand Cove Road versus Seawood Lane, just based on where you'd be so close to the intersection when you came out. So it is believed that this would be the best traffic arrangement.
Thank you. At this time, I'd ask the developer or the applicant to come forward, and if you could state your name, and if you've read staff recommendation, please.
Eva? I'll let the techie look after this. I may or may not need it, but anyway, I'll get started. Mr. Chairman, committee members, Rick Turner. I'm here for 704-987 MB Limited regarding our property at 859 Sand Cove Road. Staff's presentation was pretty clear. It's got most of the highlights flagged in there, so I'm not going to add a lot to that. I may if I've got some time after I address some concerns. Two concerns I want to address. One is on traffic controls. The second one is on just cost, development cost. It appears what we're being asked to do is take the professional opinions of the traffic engineer and just set them aside. That's really something that I don't support. If I get professional advice, I choose to follow it because that way you have less conflicts going forward. Just that one there, the presentation. Yeah, just leave it there. And it's just these keys. Okay. Sorry. So anyway, that being said, we originally submitted a site plan to the traffic engineer to have a traffic impact statement prepared. The reason for that, when we applied for the rezoning, we wanted to have the complete package, not a lot of stuff that weren't coming in after. So we sent it through, and after they did some preliminary work, they got back to us and said, you've got your traffic coming onto Sand Cove Road. There's an entrance to an apartment building up from the intersection. You've got an area for people to drop off children. Now, when I say drop off, not just here, get out of the car and go in. They pull into a lay-by, take their children in, come out and leave. Daniel Avenue is right straight across the street from that, another intersection. And then we had our proposed main entrance. And in traffic engineering, if you can get things directed to a controlled intersection, that's the favored way to go. So clustering the intersections, he looked at that as, no, that's not a good situation. That's a dangerous situation because people can't have their eyes going everywhere all at once. When I received the proposal from the 9 property owners, and everything I'm speaking to here is on that letter, and they're sort of highlighting these things. I went back to the traffic engineer and said, look, I've got a suggestion here. They're looking at maybe we come in one way, counterclockwise through the property and exit onto Sand Cove Road, and exit only, less traffic. I didn't get to speak to him in person. I got an email back from him. I have the email here. And basically he said, no, it's the same thing. There's still too much congestion of intersections in a short span of street. So I followed up with a phone call to the traffic engineer and look, what if we look at it the other way and come clockwise through the site? And he said, it's the same thing, Rick. I will not recommend it. So at that point in time, I figured, okay, we're going out Seawood Lane to get into the property. If the development proceeds, okay, it's not going to be 100+ vehicles a day starting tomorrow. We're looking at a 4 or 5 year project, 3 buildings, a couple of them fairly large, 47, 48 units. So, the build on those, the smaller one's going to be a year better. The other 2 are probably going to be in excess of a year. That's if we do them one right after the other. So I think we've got a window of time there that things can be analyzed, improvements can be made. And it certainly gives ample time to see what's really warranted there. In our plans, we do propose to do upgrades on the Seawood Lane, and that would be from our entrance out to Sand Cove Road. The improvements we'd make, if you recall the diagram that showed that, it showed where they padded in some asphalt and a white line. That's the sidewalk. Well, what we'd be doing is actually making that part of the roadway to widen that section of the road, put the sidewalk in beyond that. So it improves the intersection. It makes it more walkable, safer. There's a reference that the people in that write-up want to see that there's signage at our entrance where we come out on Seawood Lane, signage to direct people not to take a left turn and go down through that maze of streets. And that's, simple. I agree with that. If the city doesn't want to put that signage there, we'll put that signage on our own property. Do not turn left. So there's some things, those arrangements, sidewalk, signs, some of that stuff, no problem. It's already in our plans for most purposes. Now we get to the second thing, cost. What's being proposed? Well, I'll start it this way. I've been open and upfront in the community for several years. If you had a chance to go through my community engagement, I've got a copy of it here. It's a page, almost 2 pages of bullet points, each one of those being direct engagement. So we are wanting to move ahead. We're not in favor of adjusting plans at this point. We've been through the thing with the community extensively. So what I can say, it's perplexing to be presented with a proposal in the final hour when we've been engaged literally for years. And if you look into the report, you'll see how extensive the engagement's been. There's costs associated with the proposal submitted, and they could result in the project certainly being delayed, maybe not going ahead, possibility. I would hope not, but definitely it's going to cause delays if we go down that road. Some of the things we've done that have cost us compared to how most developers go for a maximum density, get as much out of a project as possible. We've proposed large setbacks, 2 and 4 times what's required in the zone. We're going with almost half of the density allowances for an RM zone. We're looking at doing an interconnected trail system, substantial amenity space way beyond the bylaw, and it goes on and on and on. So we've done this trying to be extremely community-minded because this can be a high-end development. It's in a high-end neighborhood, and we're looking forward to it being very successful. The other thing that we're doing here that certainly puts your cost up when you're going lower density and adding a parking garage, elevators, sprinkler systems, security systems. These things don't come cheap, but that's what we have in our plans. This final hour request is for something that's not budgeted for. It concerns me deeply. And I'll just itemize some of the things that includes is, 1, we're going to be putting in another section of roadway, curbing, sidewalk, redesign to go out to Sand Cove Road, if that's the way this goes. We lose parking spaces, which the neighborhood want us to achieve something in the order of 1.25 spaces per unit rather than 1. And we're going to work towards that. But we're losing parking where it already exists by putting that road in. So what we have to do is we have to replace that parking somewhere on the site. Stormwater design, it affects the stormwater design because all of a sudden we have more hard surfaces to deal with, increases pond sizes, increases the amount of underground piping to take it to the stormwater system.
Rick, that was 10 minutes, so I'll give you 1 more minute if you could
Okay.
finish up, please.
I won't need my thing here then. Anyway, and the other thing, we lose our design team to some extent. I mean, they've got projects lined up. They can't just wait for us. So that could put us into a delay of a year. We were hoping to do something and start this year. That puts us a delay of a year. What that does to budgets and things like tariffs in the world, we're not going to be able to have any pricing until next year. So it puts us totally in an area of flux. There is a memorandum of understanding that we prepared, which there's somebody from the association that will be presenting that. And I think you'll see the real benefits to this. Building on the community, making it more livable, and allowing people to age in place. There's some other comments I've got there about, we told the neighbors, if for some reason the apartments don't go through, our fallback position would be to do something seniors oriented, a seniors home, something like that. Residential, try to keep it in keeping with the neighborhood. And that's permitted. Today, we could have a building permit and go ahead and do that in the neighborhood institutional. But we're trying to gravitate that totally to RM zoning for the complete site. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I ask if any committee members have questions for the proponent. All right, thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
And did you have a question? At this point, I'd like to call if there's anybody that'd like to speak for or against, please come forward and state your name.
Hi, my name is Ann Gushurst. I own a property on Seawood Lane, which I've owned since 1985, and I am the vice president of the Duck Cove Association. So I have a couple of things to say. First of all, the change in the site plan that we were given is recent. And the idea that all of the access to the plan would be on Seawood Lane is a recent change. Because, and Mr. Turner's correct, he has been open with us, but we didn't know about that change until very recently. And that causes a lot of problems. So if you could pull up, you've got the traffic study here. I'm going to refer to that as well, but I need a page, I think it's 118 of your agenda package. So Seawood Lane, while you guys are waiting for the picture to come up, it's a very small lane. The average width is 4 meters, but there are many, many places on Seawood Lane where it's considerably less than 4 meters. It is a two-way lane, but 2 cars cannot pass at the same time. So when cars go both ways, somebody has to pull off into somebody else's driveway. There are no sidewalks on Seawood Lane. We already have huge problems with stormwater that the city has promised they will fix, but hasn't quite done yet. I know it because it all ends up in my garage. And Fisherman's Lane is very, very steep. At the bottom of Seawood Lane, there's a part that's about, 100 meters that routinely is a skating rink. Cars cannot go up it for 2 to 4 days at a time. So making it one way is not possible because there are 4 driveways that go off at such a steep angle that it has to come down Seawood and must go up Fisherman's, but you can't make the whole entire loop. Great. So you guys don't have a pointer. Okay. All right. People walk on Seawood Lane every single day. It's a beautiful part of the city. We have all kinds of traffic. There are 13 children that live on Seawood, Keene Road, and Sand Cove Road. I know because 4 of them are my grandkids. And that's not really true. 3, 1 is due tomorrow. I walk my grandkids to daycare and the bus stop every single day. Now, if you look at this site plan, you'll notice, I keep doing this, over here, that this parking lot is actually 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6 parking spaces for the daycare, and I don't know how many you can get over here. I'm at the daycare almost every morning, and I have seen up to 12 cars parked there dropping off kids. You have now added in this plan 1 additional access point for a road that's too congested to have any more added. We don't agree with this additional access point. Doesn't make sense. The parking lot does just fine right now. And the reduction of parking spaces for the daycare and adding a drop-off lane doesn't make any sense. The kids at the daycare are way too young to be dropped off and walk in by themselves. Every single kid must be walked in by their parents. On top of that, right here is the school bus stop for Seaside School. Up to 20 kids walk there every single day and wait for the bus. I know because I go there. So what we're talking about is asking for a lane here. So it is paving this amount here, which really is offset by losing this. And we're talking about having traffic be one way because if you have this be an egress and ingress point, the chances that people don't get backed up here and go down Seawood Lane are slim to none. And I am telling you, we not only have between 40 to 50 people walking that lane every day, but there are at least 3 blind spots. There are at least 4 places where 2 cars can't even remotely pass each other. And you've got a hill up Fisherman's that is treacherous in the winter. I personally have pushed 3 cars out last winter. Actually, I helped. So let's talk a little bit about the traffic study. There's big problems with the traffic study. First of all, there's absolutely no analysis whatsoever of pedestrian traffic. As I was leaving tonight to come here, there was a woman I don't know walking her child in a stroller down the lane. That's not unusual. So you tell me what happens if we put a development with 128 units, probably 160 to 200 cars, and even one or two of them on an hourly basis go down the lane. Because I'll tell you, people who live on the lane know you can't go more than 15, 20 kilometers an hour, but people who don't live on the lane routinely go faster than that. I'm telling you right now, it's a fatality waiting to happen. I don't say that lightly. The study urges that pages 4 and 26, the city rethink the Sand Cove Seawood intersection. And they need to, because you all, if you look in your history, will know that it's a problem intersection. So the city models traffic, or the traffic study models traffic coming out of Seawood Lane going, and this is at, I want to say it's page, shoot, I thought I put this in here. Well, anyway, page 22 of the study, that 21% will turn west, 49% will turn east, and 30% will cross Sand Cove to Blurry. That's insane. People coming out of this development are going to be predominantly going across to Blurry because that's where the Golden Mile is and that's where the bridge is to go uptown. You turn west, you might be going to the Irving Nature Park, but there's basically nothing else down there. And maybe there's some people going to Frenchies down on the Lower West Side. But most of them are going to be going to Blurry. That means they're crossing the lane. Blurry is not a controlled intersection. It's just not. There's not a stop sign there. People come very quickly sometimes. You don't know until the very last minute if they're coming straight, going right, or going left. I personally know two people who've been T-boned at that intersection, and my daughter who lives on Sand Cove Road just watched another accident happen within the last couple of weeks. Many traffic interventions have been tried there. At one point there was a light, there was a light saying slow down, and it got taken out by a series of traffic accidents. The stop sign's been taken out several times. It's a bad intersection. There is a deaf allowed looking down Blurry. You cannot see the traffic coming. There's another one on the west approach from Sand Cove to this intersection. You can't see it because it goes up enough. And I'm telling you that there are already too many accidents here. The only logical solution is to have a traffic circle because you can't have people stopping on Blurry. The grade is too steep in the winter. So I am asking that the PAC recommend that the City Council order you to study putting in a traffic circle here. The other thing that I think you really should consider is having one-way traffic in and out. It is unrealistic to have a one-lane, little tiny lane. And I wished I had taken pictures and sent them to you, but it's beautiful, but it's literally 10 feet across in sections. And if you dump 160 cars, how long is it going to take for them to start going around Fisherman's Lane? Doesn't take many for that to be a real problem for us. Let's see, what else do I want to say? It's been said that there's lots of, density in our neighborhood. That's just not true. This will be by far the highest density in the neighborhood. And I want to say something else. Most of my neighbors do not want to stop development. But we do not want our kids to get run over either. So that's sort of where we have problems. By the way, Mr. Turner's been lovely. He has talked to us a lot. Another couple of problems with the traffic study, it analyzes the intersection as though it's an AWCS, which is an all-way controlled stop. It's not. There's no stop sign on Blurry. So the analysis of that intersection using that particular parameter it's inapplicable. Again, they don't mention pedestrian traffic at all. And their assumptions are not very good. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but.
Any committee members have questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So, excuse me. the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned that there was a recent change that you just became aware of on one of the street changes.
Yes.
Has that been reviewed with Mr. Turner?
Oh,
for further
as
discussion?
a matter of fact, Mr. Turner and I spoke about it about an hour and a half over the weekend. Our association, and most of the people in the audience are from my association, we had a meeting 2 weeks ago, which I got a flat tire and I didn't attend, but that was the first time that we had a chance to really talk about it. And I'll show you on here. So this roundabout is brand new. And the idea that the whole entry and exit would be here is also new. Previously, I want to say that there was another way to get in and out.
So I just want to be clear that the most recent change you talk about has been addressed by Mr. Turner in his presentation. Am I right? In other words, it's
It
not-
has been.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? I think I'll remind you, 10 minutes as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would appreciate a 2-minute warning. You know I have a tendency to ramble sometimes. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Matthew DeLuz. We just had our annual general meeting yesterday for the Duck Cove Association. So I had resigned my post of president, so I'm here as president pro tempore, just for this evening, as our newly elected president, Harrison Fisher, was unable to make it due to family commitments. So a quick spiel, very quick, on the Duck Cove Association. So we've been in existence for, I think, almost 100 years. I personally have a box of meeting minutes going back at least until 1947. We've been incorporated. We were incorporated in 1990, so this is our 35th year as an incorporated nonprofit. We own several parcels of land in the immediate vicinity, and we maintain this private land for public use. We own Duck Cove Beach, a large section of the trail, tennis courts, various common areas, and some private roads in the neighborhood. So we raise funds to maintain these areas for the use of all the residents in the west side and anyone who comes to visit it. Keep the beach clean, maintain the stairs and all of that. So we've been in close contact with Mr. Turner over the past several months since December 2024, and they have been accommodating. As you can tell, there are still some issues to be worked out, but we are quite happy with several of the compromises they've already made on their design. And one of the things we also wanted to emphasize is our voluntary partnership with Mr. Turner and their corporation. They have provisionally agreed to provide us 2 tranches of one-time funding in the sum of $55,000 to improve trail access in the area and to help rebuild stair access to Duck Cove Beach, as well as to join the association and pay annual membership dues to the organization to offset the additional density and foot traffic we expect over the parcels of land we own that we maintain. So that being said, there are, and I know I spoke with you very briefly, Mr. Chair, that you have driven around some of the roads. If you didn't drive Seawood, Seawood is narrower than Duck Cove. The roads are very narrow. We do get a lot of traffic in the summer. We have a lot of people parking on 4-meter wide roads, both sides sometimes in the summer to access the beach, which, as you can imagine, presents significant traffic issues when you have 2 cars parked on a 4-meter road. it makes it virtually impassable. So we had a vote at our annual general meeting yesterday night. The vote was unanimous in support of this development as currently proposed, with the caveat that, with 3 caveats. Our Vice President, Ann, had already mentioned one, that city staff examine the possibility of a traffic circle or other improvements to the Blurry Sand Cove Seawood interchange. The other 2 amendments we would suggest to staff's recommendation is a Section 59 condition limiting building height to 4 stories. In the off chance that the developer does not develop, a lot of people in the neighborhood are concerned that if this gets mid-rise residential under this design blueprint, they decide not to go ahead, they sell to another developer, and somebody drops a series of 6-story buildings in the neighborhood. So they would like some guarantees that that won't happen. The other request from my membership is we ask for a second Section 59 condition to increase parking minimums above the city's mandated 1 parking spot per unit. We would also like to emphasize to city staff the lack of parking enforcement on these narrow streets. Under the city's traffic bylaw, Section 5, subsection 3, subsection A, you cannot park a motorized vehicle on a road with a width of 6.5 meters or less. So we would like to see that enforced to prevent road blockages that would impede traffic, that would impede emergency vehicles. How am I doing on time, Mr. Chair?
3.5 minutes.
Thank you. I would like to also address the committee as an ordinary resident. So I live at 42 Duck Cove Crescent. If anyone happened to have driven through the neighborhood, it's the very last house on the southwest corner of Duck Cove Crescent, little gray bungalow right on the beach. So if this development goes through, I'm going to personally have probably, upwards of 200 people walking through my backyard to get to the beach, to get to the trail, because there's a little cut through between Seawood and Duck Cove that runs north-south from this property down to the beach. Even given that, I am still personally supportive of the development. I realize that no development is perfect, but if we put sensible limits on this, and we can get things like if the city is able to look at traffic and parking and the potential amendment of staff's recommendation with those 2 Section 59 conditions, not mine anymore, but the membership of the Duck Cove Association would be very happy with the development at that stage. I'm
Thank
available
you.
for questions if anyone.
Committee members have any questions for Matthew? Thank you for coming forward. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against this application? And if you could give us your name, please.
My name is Peter Smith. I live on Seawood Lane. I am not in favor of this proposal. A few things. I would like to put a big ditto under all the things Ann said about traffic, because it's a friggin' nightmare as it is. If you add another 100 to 200 cars trying to use our road and go to our stop sign, it's going to be a nightmare. My understanding was at the annual general meeting of the association last night, there were people not in favor of this proposal. from a member who was there, tells us this. Also, he challenged the executive to say, when did this memorandum of understanding get approved by the membership? Did you just decide to do it? There's members that don't even know what's going on. And some people feel that these tranches of money, supposedly earmarked for fixing the stairs, are a bribe. And the paying on behalf of the residents, their membership association dues, is a bribe, my opinion. When I look at the plans, the two different plans, there's several things that jump to mind. Yes, there's a little pond for stormwater runoff, but I look at all the paving there. How are they going to clear the snow off that? And where are they going to put that snow? If you get a huge mountain of snow, it's going to melt in the spring, causing runoff, and there's enough of an erosion problem on the west beaches now, and that's all going to run downhill right to where there's more erosion. I'm not convinced that there's enough sewerage availability for a project of this nature. I don't believe that the sewer pipes in that area are very large in diameter. Snow's a big concern. The parking and the number of vehicles. When I look at the two plans, there's a tiny little gray box on them near the lake there labeled garbage. Is that where all the garbage for all the units goes, in that little gray square rectangle? What about vehicles coming to deal with garbage? What about Canada Post? Are we going to be suddenly made to use community mailboxes? Because I can't believe that the postal workers are going to go to all those floors of all those things. I don't know. I just have questions. Have I missed anything? Anyways, I'm not happy about it. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and otherwise I'll just go away and sit down.
Committee members have any questions for Peter? Thank you for bringing your concerns forward.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Yep, please come forward and state your name.
My name is Jill Michaels. I live on Seawood Lane. When I walked through that parking lot as it exists now between Seawood Lane and Cherry Tree Lane, I have seen, and I've counted several times, 15 cars parked behind that building, which I assume are either people ride sharing or they're staff of the daycare. So where do they go? I mean, you've got 6 spots available there. I don't know what their staff size is. I know the ratio of kids to supervisors is good. So it's just something I'd like to just point out. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members have any questions? Thank you for coming forward. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for or against this application? You could state your name again, please.
Mr. Chairman, Jody Clifford, the Development Real Estate Manager for excuse me, Vision St. John. We're speaking in favor of this application. I think it's a great proposal for a large vacant lot on the west side, probably one of the larger developments in that part of the city, which is a good thing. I'm not going to comment on the traffic situation. I think that's handled by the city's professional staff. A lot of discussion about that. Then I did look at the plans, and I wondered, I was going to ask Rick, geez, Rick, why didn't you put more density on this site? Because you could probably accommodate more. It's such a large lot. So it's interesting listening to a lot of the conversations tonight. But I think I think speaks to Rick's professionalism over the years. I can tell he's gone out of his way to make this project fit community design and concerns and so forth. So a lot of times you don't see developers go through some of the pains of including the elements that he's included in his development, the walking paths, the trails. He's trying to mass it in a way that is, from his perspective, their perspective, good for the community, whereas I think, quite honestly, a site that big could accommodate more height and more density, but that's up to the applicant. I realize that there's concerns that have been expressed around traffic, and I'm not going to comment on that. would reflect on the growth the city and the region has gone through in the last 5-6 years, which has been significant and it's been great. We've had a lot of population move, and through this round of growth, for the first time in a generation, it's actually happening in the urban core of the city, and not as much. Well, it is happening in the suburbs as well, but not like it used to in the past, which is good. What comes with growth are pains, and that's something we have to go through as a community. It's not just traffic pains. What's not been talked about is the housing pains that our community goes through tonight. So yes, there's pains, but we've got to find solutions to those pains. We need housing. Yes, we need traffic solutions. And again, I lean on the professionals to feedback on that, but we also have to get our heads around the fact that we're growing, and our neighborhoods and our communities surrounding the urban core are going to grow with it, which means you need to anticipate there's going to be more density in areas where there wasn't in the past. And as a result, we're going to have more places for folks to live, which is certainly going to be coming as a relief to the community. And other than that, I would just comment on some of the conditions that were proposed as part of that discussion. I'm not for or against any of it, just to be mindful that some of these things, like adding a condition for more parking to have to occur on a site, does have cost implications for a developer, and sometimes it can throw the balance of the performer off, especially if it's structured. A structured parking space would be in and around $50,000 per space, depending on where you're at. And not to suggest that that would necessarily be structured parking, but just cautioning on that kind of implication for the application. Thank you.
Members have any questions for Jody on this? Thank you. Does anybody else like to speak for or against this application? Second time? Would anybody like to?
Online, I've got, you can hear me still?
Yes, I can.
It's Daniel Houghton, again, from Engineering by Houghton. And I've been working with Rick on this development, and he didn't ask me to be here. I just happened to be online, but I have to echo what Jody just said, and that's, I also challenged Rick as to why he wasn't pushing for more density. It makes the development very difficult financially when we don't maximize the density, but this is a legacy type project for him, and he's demonstrated that by the lower density and the amenity spaces. With respect to the parking, I also have to echo what Jody had mentioned with respect to increasing the ratio. By doing that, we'll increase, we have a fixed number of stalls that we can get on the inside of the building, which is already a luxury feature on a 4-story building. But any additional stalls you would increase via an increase to that ratio would have to be built exterior, which would increase the impervious surface area, which would then have an implication to the stormwater management and increase the size of the detention pond and some of the storm piping that would be required. So I think he's been pushing me to draw this in a way that there's lots of green space. We're not maximizing the impervious surface. We're not maximizing the size of the buildings that could be there. I'm in favor of this. And I just as a character reference, the way Rick has approached this project, from my perspective as a professional engineer, is much different than a lot of the developers that approach us to represent them, who are always asking for more than the maximum in almost every category. And I truly appreciate his approach on this project, and I think it'd be a great fit for that area.
Thank you very much. Do any committee members have questions? Thank you for your input on this.
Pleasure.
And third and final time, is there anybody that would like to speak for or against this proposal? At this time, I will, do we have any questions for the applicant? At this point, I'll close okay, we do have a question, Rick.
Rick, thank you, Mr. Chair. With the drawing up on the screen, where are you proposing the sidewalks? Because I keep hearing there's no sidewalks, but you've talked about sidewalks. I've read about sidewalks, but I just don't know where you're going to put them. And for the record, every time I try to open this page on my report, it crashes.
Right where the arrow is there. There's no sidewalk there. There's a facsimile, but it's certainly not suitable. Right here.
Okay.
So that's new sidewalk to come out and join up with the sidewalk
From Sand Cove Road down Seaward.
down to the entrance. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all. That's the only question I had.
Any other questions? No, thank you very much. At this point, we'll close the public portion. Do committee members have questions for staff? Ann?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have a question about the parking minimum. So is transit available in that area, readily available? Is it well serviced by transit?
Through the chair, yes, there's a stop directly out front near the daycare.
Okay.
I believe there's the school bus system also stops there as well.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's all in the question. The only, otherwise it's a statement. When I was reading through this package, I will say I was super impressed with the developer in it because we get a lot of these packages for big ones. And yes, they typically would put far more density on these sites, far less green space, far less community benefit, and far less consultation, frankly. So it's a nice template, truthfully, for other developers going forward, because it's really nice to see that. And as a result, you can see it by the people from the neighborhood showing up, and they've got some nice words to say about it, and they still have questions, and that's fair. Traffic is not something that, I'm not an engineer, I'm not going to be solving it. I'm not going to be making a condition on here for putting in a traffic circle or not putting in a traffic circle. Do I think there's more work to be done there? Yes. Is it going to fetch up my vote for this project? No, but I will, and I don't know if that has to be a condition or if we just know that that's still pending all kinds of building permits and conversations, I would think, but staff can correct me on that. I don't know where that goes, that conversations about what has to happen in traffic. More work perhaps needs to be done there. I do have empathy for some of those streets. I know that they're narrow, and I just want to make sure they're as safe as possible and that we've exhausted all options that could be put on the table for that without it also being so onerous it kills a project. Yeah, I think that's all. I'm happy, going to be happy to vote for this. That's a caveat that matters to me. The parking minimums with transit availability, that is not something I would put as a condition, but I empathize and I understand why the request is there. What were the other requests you guys had? I have them all written down here. Traffic circle, building height. Oh, limiting the building height to 4 stories. I don't want to do that because I feel like this place is ripe for more height, but I'm open to it if the committee feels that's something they want to do because I love the consensus that the community came to with the developer. And I like to stand with that if that's something that makes it work for everybody. But yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else have a question? Councilor Sullivan?
No question. I'll throw a motion out there and then chat at it if there's a seconder. And so I would move staff's recommendation with the addition of the section 59 for 4 stories and a passing recommendations along to council that the city's engineer have a look at the blurry intersection and to our parking folks to have some conversations with the local neighborhood associations with regards to the concerns that were brought forward. If I get a seconder, I'll speak to them.
Okay.
So echo a little bit of what Ms. McShane said with regards, gosh, I've sat through 2 sets of a whole lot of these over the last little bit, and I wish there were more Rick Turners developing in the city of St. John. I've made the comment several times that many developers seem to take a parcel of land and want to put as much as they can on every inch of that land. I like to have an RM zoning request in front of us that isn't all 6-story buildings. And that was my question earlier, and Mr. Turner addressed it right off the top, that he purposefully is not maximizing the density on this property because he wants it to fit with the neighborhood, because he wants to be respectful of the neighborhood. I respect that tremendously. Although I do also get, if Rick's moving along and things don't work out and we rezone it, somebody else is going to buy this and put 6-story buildings all over it. So we need to have that cap. So and that's not a shot at Rick. That is an acknowledgement of his Renaissance thoughts on how this is being put together. So that's why I put that there. You can call it a bribe. Last night I was calling it community benefit, you know, and the city of St. John actually now officially is looking at, no offense, I wouldn't call this a significant project around community benefits and relating it to industrial parks and that sort of thing. But, you know, in Milledgeville, we were looking at, you know, is there enough play parks for a 2 6-story development that's going on? And, you know, to have a developer not say, hey, we'll put a little trail in, but actually purposefully put money towards the local associations and commit to those things. You know, neighborhoods do feel growing pains when we approve these things. And I certainly respect the fact that I'm not sitting here begging the developer to do something or having to impose that it's already been done in advance. And the number of times we sit here and say to developers, why didn't you talk to the neighborhood? And, you know, even some of the folks in here are mad at you, Rick, and they still like you. Right? Like that speaks volumes to the work you have done to build a relationship in this neighborhood before you got to this point. So, and part of that, sorry, now I'm rambling, but part of the community benefit that I think the city can look at, you know, is if the neighborhood's going to have this and host this development, you know, the least we can do is send somebody out to have a conversation about the parking and mobile parking enforcement, or do you need some more signage to say don't park, whatever it might be. And certainly asking our traffic engineer to have another look at the blurry intersection in light of this, no promises, but to have them actually have a look at it, and I think that is fair ball. So.
Thank you. So I have a motion and a seconder. Question? All those in favor? Opposed? It passed. Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's time. This time, I will note that on the agenda, we have a meeting for July the 15th. We do not have that meeting on July the 15th. So I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Where's Jerry? Jerry. Phil and Peter, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you.